spark. Dive deep inside the mind.
Hey, Mark, we're back in studio. Kentucky Talks.
Steve,
it's time to.
Where are we, Steve?
We are back in studio.
I feel like I just woke up out of a stupor.
We have.
I mean, it's been a few weeks.
Well, I tell you what, Fancy Farm kind of took a toll on us.
It did.
And we had a lot of
I can't hear you. All I'm hearing is music.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There
you go. So, you're right. Fancy Farm, Fancy Farm life and everything gets into the way. Hey, I wanted to say something. Last Thursday was my last cancer treatment.
Yay.
And, praise God that he has, I believe God has healed me from cancer. And
good.
We have done, everything we've done over the last year has been about preventing it from coming back and such. And I believe that God puts doctors in our path and things. And I think that, you look good too. I feel good, man. I feel really good. I've lost a little bit of weight over the last couple of weeks. I'm not seeing. I'm getting a little bit. I did have a cancer treatment last week, so my energy level is still kind of like blah.
That was the last one, though.
But that's the last
Rang
one.
the bell.
And from now, I rang the bell. We celebrated with the team over there. Told the ladies, don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I never see you again. And then they quickly reminded me, you still have to come back for for checkup. So I was like, oh yeah, well, I do hope to see you there, but not on this end of the hallway where we get treatment.
Yeah,
so.
no kidding.
And things like that. But it's been great. It's the experience it's an experience I don't want to have again, but the people that over there at the and I'm going to give them a quick shameless plug over there, I guess, but the over at the Norton Cancer Center, Cancer Institute over in Court, and that group of ladies over there and the doctors over there have done a fabulous job. They've made it as painless as possible. It's not been completely painless, obviously, because you're getting an infusion, a blood infusion every few weeks, and I tell you what, I really I really pray for those people who have to go and get those treatments, 5 days a week type of things. And, I think it's a matter of, I think that, I just praise God I didn't have to go through that level of treatment. But, we're on the mend. I think we're going to be, I'm praising God for good scans so far. And we're going to have a great scan coming next month. And we're going to keep on doing what we have to do. So, but I think that right now I'm feeling really good, and I'm looking forward to getting that energy level back and moving forward, dude.
That's awesome.
So, I have a couple topics I want to talk about today.
I'm listening.
So there's been a lot of stuff in the news, a lot of talk in the news around the country about the possibility of doing a new census, and kind of along the same lines as this redistricting that's going on in Texas. And so let's make sure
we're good.
Making sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I always get a little gun shy when I get a buzz on my phone at the time. Yeah. And so if you haven't heard out there, Texas has just passed their redistricting, and it's expected to add 5 Republican seats to the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives. And of course, there are people on the left side of the aisle that are an uproar and how dare you gerrymander, and this is just wrong and blah blah blah. And but in reality, if you look at how California's been drawn up, Illinois has been drawn up, and New York has been drawn up, they have basically, in Illinois, they've all but eliminated Republicans' representation out of the state by taking, those couple heavily Democratic populated areas and spreading that population out over the whole state. Here in Kentucky, we could almost do the same thing by redistricting Louisville. There's no call for that. The Republicans, I don't mind having a Democrat representative in Louisville. Yep. I mean, that's what the people want. That's what the people want. I'm not looking to call to say, hey, let's redistrict that person, them there is some strangeness to the way our patterns are. I'll be the first to admit that the first district is kind of an odd shape. It goes all the way around, goes up to Frankfort, all the way from Paducah. So that's a tough one to swallow. But it's not done. It's not done with that I can see with the intent of knocking off knocking out a Democrat stronghold. Right. It's it's about probably more about how we who's doing representing where they live and things like that. So I think that they made some accommodations there, but it's still a big red area on the state, regardless whether you draw it that way or not.
Right.
We're in District 2, which goes from covers it's a pretty standard plot of land, goes down to like Ohio County, over to the river, up Breckenridge County, and kind of follows along the river and comes back up to Louisville. It does go out to the west end, or the east end of Louisville. It doesn't take any of the west end. So it is a little bit odd shape to get some, but those are heavily Republican districts anyway. It's not like we went and took some Democrat districts and put them into a heavy red area. To negate that, we made sure that Louisville has Louisville is a majority Democrat location, and they have a Democrat representative. So I think we've done it the right way for the most part. Now, but you look at what's going on in Texas, they are kind of reacting somewhat to what the president wants. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I think that President Trump has asked them to do some things, but I also think that they're looking at it from a point of view of there's been a lot of movement from California to Texas, and that's not represented in their districts in the Republican representation in the state, and because California has redistricted themselves in such a way, and as long with Illinois and New York, Texas felt like in order for them to get the representation that represents Texas, the Texas values and Texas population, they had to do this. So they did it. That's going to affect, and it looks like there's going to be 5 Republican seats picked up out of Texas. So now California has said, we're going to redistrict here as well. It's a little bit more difficult for them because they have to put it on a referendum to do it. And I think they've changed their laws in the last years. They changed their law to protect against a Republican coming in to office and changing it back. So if Republicans ever take office again, they've built in protections that says, you can't do that. And so now, they have to go around and kind of get around their own rules to do it. But it looks like they're going to do it and try to get another 5 to try to, in their eyes, to rebalance. Well, Texas can probably do another 15 or something like that. They could probably do another 5 to 10 themselves. And now Florida has signed on to redo their districts, and they're going to add another 5 Republican districts in there in Florida. Anyway, it's going back and forth. It looks like Indiana has looked at doing it now. I think West Virginia may have actually added themselves to the list, or at least to look at it. Ohio has also looked at it.
So let's get into where we get the information from. Most redistricting, or a lot of folks call it gerrymandering, and it's a U.S. political move
and the word
to draw, boundaries. And I got the definition.
And that word comes from from Gary, was actually the name of the person that started this whole thing. So it was actually called gerrymandering. It's the last name of the person, I believe, that kind of started this whole ordeal. Over time, it became gerrymandering for whatever reason. Just the way our language works, I guess. Sometimes people. But
it's called, defined in context of representative electoral system, is the political manipulation of electoral district boundaries to advantage a party, group, or socioeconomic class with the constituency. So they're using that word, but redistricting has always occurred and typically occurred as a result of the census.
Correct. And so,
but Texas's problem, and to your point, is that a lot of businesses have left since the census. The census
they left
was
California
done,
and moved to Texas
with their employees
and to Florida.
And their employees left with them, which means that you have a lesser population in California, but you let illegals in. So this gets into the conversation of, okay, well, you have more people working in Texas, but you've allowed more illegals in. So you want to redistrict California because you have a different population. Texas wants to do it because they have a different population than what was recorded in the census.
Right, which happened. It's supposed to happen in 2020. Of course, we had COVID. It actually got pushed out to 2021. It didn't finish until like 2022. So it's actually pretty new, but the counts happened earlier in that period. So the final numbers I don't think applied until 2022, and then that you feel like it's settled until you realize that wait a minute, a lot has happened since COVID. And so President Trump has called for a new census. Well, the president, if you look at it's an Article 1, the census clause is an Article 1 clause, which is the left to the legislature. So it is up to the House and Senate to put together a law and say, we want a new census and we're going to pay for it. Here's the money, blah, 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 to go do it. And then, of course, the president then executes that law from the executive branch, but he cannot directly call for a new census. Now, censuses have happened. Special called censuses have happened in the past. I can't give you the exact dates. That it is allowed. The only stipulation in the law, in the Constitution, is that it must happen at least once every 10 years. So it cannot go 10.5 years without having a census. Or 11 years. It has to be within 10 years of the previous census. So that's why you typically see it on the tens, just a nice round number. It happens when
so it has to happen.
It has to happen within 10 years.
So it could happen more often.
It could happen as often as Congress wants it to happen. And there have been cases where special censuses have been called to, like, especially when you had, from 1800s into the early 1900s with population explosions and things happening. So some of the controversy around this is who do you count in the census? And this has been something that's been litigated in multiple times in history. And one thing that is kind of come up is that we didn't have the term not undocumented or illegal alien until the late 1800s. And that was because the forefathers did not, when they started when they wrote the Constitution, they did not, this was a country of immigrants, and they didn't see that large groups of population would move into certain areas of the country. So they didn't. When they counted it, they had, of course, the 3/5 rule, which is for enslaved peoples, and that was a controversy because the southern states said, "Hey, we have all these slaves; they need to count in the census." So, because the southern states were trying to build up, their representation in Congress, so they wanted to count the slaves that they brought in. That was highly controversial, and I would say it's very controversial. If you enslave a people and force them to come in, they're not under the jurisdiction of the United States. They're under the jurisdiction of their home country. They shouldn't have counted. However, I don't want you to not count them because of their race or ethnicity. I want you to. I would say only if they wanted to be counted and they wanted to be in the United States, and you count them. Now, this goes up to the point where you have people who are moving into the country now. They're not documented. We have a immigration system that has been in place since the mid to late 1800s. that says that, hey, if you want to come to the United States, you come here legally, you stop at a port of entry, or you come here and you register to become to get on the list to become naturalized, and that takes 7 to 10 years or so of you being here, staying here. You assimilate. You're supposed to take some time to assimilate into the American culture. And the controversy has come now is whether or not people who are moving here illegally are trying to assimilate into the American culture, or if they are simply here trying and bringing their culture with them. And that's become a very controversial part of this process, because the immigration system was not intended to take on so many people, undocumented people, and things like that. And so what's happened is now these undocumented people come into the United States. They're welcomed into certain cities and certain places that want to build up their representation.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just a buzzing just came in somewhere. And so they started building up their, they wanted to build up their representation in Congress. So they said, hey, come here so that we can count you in the census. And they build up. So that there's a reason that these states like California and Illinois and New York want to welcome in the immigrants, because they get to count them in the census. They get
electoral votes. It increases the electoral votes. It's what determines district voting practices. It's what you're supposed to use when you do the districting map.
However, it says there was a court case, I think in the 1800s, maybe the late or early 1900s, that said that you could not use undocumented aliens in apportionment for Congress. You could use it for funding, apportionment for funding, but not for. So this is where it's gotten controversial, because if you're using it for representation, then it's like they've separated the two things, and the census is used for both. So it's become a little controversial. You should, there's rulings on the books that say yes, you should count them all.
Yeah.
And then I don't mind you counting them all, but at the same time, if it says that you're not supposed to use it for apportionment of Congress, then that means you need to count twice. You have to have two different counts. One with and one without. So one, yes, if you need funding, yes, we'll help you fund your activity. However, if you now, because states know this, and the politicians know this, is it right for them to invite all these undocumented people into their cities and their states? Just so they can now get all this money from the government, from the federal government, and they're counting them. They want to count them for apportionment of Congress. It seems like it's the same thing that the slave owners were doing at the beginning of our country, that they wanted to count those 3/5. They're not asking for 3/5. They want to count everybody as a whole, because. But it seems like they're doing the same thing. They're bringing in huge populations of people, undocumented people, so they can bring them in to count them, and then they don't really care what happens to them after that, to tell you the truth. I mean, they say they care.
Why don't we just clean up?
But those people are all moving all over the United States. You look. Why
don't we just clean up all the drug addicts and get them back to productive members of society instead of bringing in?
I agree. I mean, I agree that there's a lot of things that are going on out there. And I'm not saying that. I think there's a discussion to be had on how do we increase legal immigration. We let in approximately about 1 million or so people a year through the naturalization process
and State Department.
Yeah, and the State Department, and that's legal immigration. Those are people that are. That have legal visas and things like that, and they can come here and get in line to start the process of becoming naturalized citizens.
So let's do this.
Yeah.
So Lutnick first of all, is the guy that's in charge of he's in charge of the Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce is in charge of the census. His name. Lutnick is the guy who was appointed by Trump to do this. Now, Lutnick admits there's several legal hurdles, and while yes, President Trump suggests this, yes, you're absolutely correct. It is Congress, and Lutnick would have to go back to. But in a recent report to the NPR on this same subject, there's lots of employees from the Census Bureau that they know they still count these individuals, but they count them as non-citizen,
right?
Because they're here, they're living in our country, and they're doing blah blah blah. And of course, they try to answer those questions in the census. Now, whether that's legal for them to be here or not, hey, you're a human on the planet Earth in America.
Count.
And that
so count, but there should be categorized. There should be some categories of how they're counted and what they're used, what those counts are used for.
And they agree with that. From the people spoken in the news story. The interesting part is when Lutnick was brought on, of course, the Senate's made up of Democrats and Republicans. Of course, they criticized him heavily about whether or not he would want to not count the illegal aliens. And he said, well, that would be a lot of legal hurdles. To your point, there's a lot of Supreme Court rulings on how we count and how the census, because it's regulated by the Constitution of the United States, the 14th Amendment, as a matter of fact.
It's Article 1 and the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment did away with the 3/5 law, the 3/5 rule, which says that all people, do you know there's still one group of there's one population in the United States that's not counted in the census. You know who it is?
Go ahead, Mark.
It's Indians untaxed.
Yep.
So if you're a Native American, an Indian, as it was stated in the Constitution, and you're in an untaxed part of the population, if you're, in other words, you're in the sovereign lands of the tribal nations, and you're untaxed, and you're not counted in the census. Now you could. You're able to be a U.S. citizen and be counted. That's not the controversy. The controversy was not a controversy, really. It's just the way the rules were set up. In that sense, the people who are crossing the border illegally, without going through the proper channels, they fall in the same standard. They're sovereign citizens to a sovereign state or country somewhere else. Not to the United States. So therefore, now,
you don't get representation.
You don't get representation in the United States. You don't get. Yeah, I get it. It's a
humanity issue.
It is a humanity issue. I want to be open to helping other peoples and such, but I also want to.
There's a lot more causes in the United States that could be solved than to be doing the outreach for.
Yeah, I think the people that are already here get left behind whenever we do this, and I've seen some different interviews of people saying, "Hey, our borders were never open," and blah 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 because because they they can come here and they can register and blah blah blah. But the thing is they're coming here, they're not registering, they're not doing things, they're not going through the proper channels.
Let me finish with where I was going.
Yeah, so go ahead.
All right. So if Trump he's recommending, right? So Lutnick has to carry water to Congress.
And that's an important aspect. He's really just making a recommendation. He's saying he wants it to happen.
And he wants to do a census where we have an accurate count of those who are society citizens of our society. They were born here. They meet all the legal requirements of being in the United States. That is our represented population.
And it actually, the Constitution says it must be an actual enumeration. So it's not an approximation or an estimation. It's an actual enumeration, which is another piece of this that's controversial, and I'll bring that up after you're finished.
Yeah. So what he is recommending to Lutnick, and Lutnick has to go and bridge all of these legal hurdles and get Congress or some of the legislators to bring it up as legislation to redo the census. So if you want to do it before the 2030, which you obviously can have mini census, but it costs a lot of money. And Lutnick even admits that it would cause a lot of hurdles within the Census Bureau because it takes them several years to prepare and plan for a census.
have to ramp up.
They do. And so 10 years, you're going through data, and then you ramp up again to
As a matter of fact, they'll probably start ramping up in 2026 for 2030.
Yep, and I will tell you, I've had family members who've served the census.
I have too.
They literally go door to door, and they do follow-up activities with everybody that they meet. Random people get selected in homes because they're supposed to knock on every door.
They're supposed to knock on every door.
They get information for them, and then I think they even gave them like gift cards and stuff like that. If the more information, if they came back and something else, they would get like a
they were trying to
for their time.
They've done some different things over the years. There was some online voluntary you can go fill out, and then they did a follow up and to try to help move the census along and such. So. Which is a dangerous thing, and we'll talk about that in a second. But
process information through versus the physical interaction. There, how many people live in this home? Oh, I see that there's 30 people living in this home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus the internet, right? And it must be true.
Well,
so anyway, Lutnick even admits in the NPR interview that there would be several legal hurdles, but. It's not going to tell his boss no. If your boss because he says
go try it. Go try to make this happen.
Yeah, and I can see why.
I think Donald Trump knows. I think President Trump knows that
you got legal hurdles.
He was expecting people to go try.
But I'm sure that there's a lot of things that are coming out. Whether it's reported or not reported on. I see stuff every day that I know doesn't get reported on the national news, and the problem is they don't want to cover it because it makes them look bad for not covering it over all the years. But not going to get into that. But there's a lot of things that are unfolding. Everybody wants to know Epstein. Everybody wants to know about this, and they want all these, conspiracy. Let's just run our country right now, and let's figure out back to the law. We're a republic. I would like to remind everybody, it's a republic. We're not a democracy.
We're a republic we're a republic with laws.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and I believe the Pledge of Allegiance. Will say that my biggest news that I heard this last week was President that you cannot burn the American flag. Yeah. You go to jail for
that's a tough one.
It is.
That's a tough because
isn't that he said it causes too much disturbance on college campuses and this, that, and the other, and people get hurt.
I can understand where he's coming from. However, I also
think it's treason.
And we can get into that, right? We can get into that, but it's a flag.
It is.
It's a representative of our country, but it's also a statement that can be made, and so it's very.
We'll see where it goes.
I would never ever burn a flag, and I would say something if somebody was trying to burn a flag next to me.
Mm-hmm.
However.
But that's his point, right?
Whether I can put somebody in jail for burning a flag. Now, if you are if there's a no burn ordinance, like in the front of the White House, and somebody comes up and burns the flag in front of the White House, well, you technically cannot burn a flag if you're not allowed to burn anything else.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to obey the laws. Now, if you went out to the woods where you can burn a flag in the woods,
hey.
Where you can, I can have a campfire and I throw my flag. I cannot do anything about that, right? But you can if you're not allowed to have an open fire in like a residential area.
I get it.
Yeah, I don't agree with it at all as far as burning a flag. I think it's one of the worst things you can do. But man, we're America, and in America, you can have an expression of things, and whether I disagree with you or not,
I got it. And I get it. But if you're not from this country and you're on American soil, and you're the one burning the flag, and you're here out of privilege to go to college or something like that, it's what statement are you making? Are you trying to overthrow our country? What? I don't know.
There are some.
I throw my hands up. I didn't write it. He did it, so I'm not in charge. He is.
I know, and it's like, man, it's such a fine line to walk, man. It's like,
evidently,
but I think that you're right. In so many aspects, you're right. I mean, if somebody came here from a foreign country, they're here, whether they're legal or illegal, they're here on on a student visa or whatever, and they're trying to incite people against the United States. Well, then you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at these things. But if you're talking about an American citizen who's standing up for a cause or whatever, and they want to burn a flag, man, it's like, I mean, I would hope that they wouldn't do that, but I would counsel them against it, to find something else to make your statement, because that's almost like going as far as you can possibly go. And there's really almost no coming back from that. You are ostracizing yourself from a big portion of the United States.
Well, there's been nobody overturn it yet, so we'll wait and see what the law.
There was that guy that went out. They immediately went out and burned a flag in the in D.C.
It's an executive order, so it's punishable.
So we'll have to see how it goes. So well, I don't know if he was. I don't even know if he was arrested. I don't even know if that guy was arrested. I think he was just given a misdemeanor burning.
For violating
the burning ordinance, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But back to the census for a moment. One thing about the census that really is the thing that we have to kind of figure out is the fact that the Constitution says it must be an actual enumeration. And so the controversy on that is, well, the Census Bureau for years has been using approximation and estimation to fill what they call "quote unquote" gaps, and they will use that to say, well, certain parts of the population are underrepresented in the census, and we need to account for that.
So
but you can't do
reach
that.
Reach out my butt.
So you can't do that, right? Because you cannot. One, you can't tell if any part of the population is missing. So what you do is you go to California and you say, oh, well, we think that there's probably, there should be 35 million more. There should be 35 million, illegal or undocumented aliens here in here, and there's only 20. We're only counting 22 million. Well, we know that there should be 35. Well, but 13 million of them have moved to other states.
So,
right?
Here's my thing.
You can't estimate that there was 35 million.
Yeah. So my thing is living in the United States. Not that they own a home here in the United States, that you're living in the home. So my thing is the U.S. Postal Service walks up to every door and drops mail in a mailbox. And even at the apartment complexes, and they know how many people live at each apartment number.
They have an idea, but they don't know.
I got it. But my whole point is,
how many children are there, things like that.
Yeah, I got it. That's right. Well, they can tell by birthday cards. I mean, Carol knows almost everything about my neighborhood, and I got it. Small rural versus big city.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I got
come
it.
on.
Well, vertical zip codes versus horizontal zip codes.
It's even
building
worse.
is a zip code. Yeah. So, but my point is that. It says specifically the term enumeration refers to the process.
Actual enumeration too. Actual enumeration.
Yes. And it says the enumeration is a crucial part of the census process as it ensures that every individual is counted accurately and in the right place.
Correct.
So that's the whole point. Because you can't have equal and fair representation if the data is skewed.
Here's the thing. You can't tell what the skew is when you count, because the data is the data. So you can say, well, I counted all these people. Well, this house never answered, so we're going to count like there's the population includes. You can't, because there's just as much. You have to look at it from the point of view that every state, every population is going to have gaps, and so just do the enumeration, count it. And then a portion based on the actual counts of those people in that area. Don't try to estimate that there's more here or whatever. Use the counts, because why? In California, you're going to have X percent of gaps. In Kentucky, you're going to have X percent of gaps. In Ohio, you're going to have X percent of gaps, and it's going to work out. You're going to have the same opportunity for gap in every location, and you're going to have about the same. I've seen articles where people talk about. The people of color, the populations of people of color are not as open to answering questions right? Well, a lot of them are illegal aliens or undocumented aliens. And they're afraid to answer questions from the U.S. government because they're afraid they're going to get busted by ICE or what have you. So I get that. But there's also sovereign citizens who don't answer questions. There's huge portions of all populations, whether you're white, brown, black, Asian, what have you. There's huge parts of your population that are against, that are uncomfortable talking to the government and answering government questions. And so those are all going to be populations that are going to be missed. And so if you just enumerate, go out and do your best effort to make the counts, a portion based on the counts, do not estimate, then I think it's going to be a more fair representation across all states. Now, if you want Kentucky to be as represented as possible, then you get on your horse and you go out and go door to door and make sure, and you do everything you can to make sure people are filling out their census information and they're getting counted. You, as a citizen of Kentucky, should want your neighbors to be counted. Make sure, go talk to them. Say, listen, we need you to be counted because we want to make sure that we're appropriately apportioned in Congress. Sure. And if we don't do that, then we're going to get missed out. But if you do that, you're still going to have. So now that means California's going to be better. They're going to get better at doing their censuses. Kentucky's going to get better. Ohio's going to get better, and so on. And if not, then we're all going to be apportioned based on the actual enumeration, as it says in the no estimates should ever be used for apportionment.
I agree.
Ever.
I agree.
So that's where we are. That's
where you and I agree.
But I think in the last couple of censuses, 2022, 2021, 2022, whatever year you want to put on it, we know that didn't happen, that they used estimates and they've overestimated populations in states like California and New York and Illinois. So so that's where we are. I think that we are I think that's what I wanted to bring up today. I think I think it's appropriate for us to do a census, especially after one that was as controversial and probably as incomplete as it was. I think that we need to put some strict guidelines around it. The Constitution, I think, puts the guideline around it that it must be enumerated. Again, whether we count undocumented aliens, I think we should not count them for apportionment, but we should count them for funding. I think that settles the argument. Sure. And I think that's what the Supreme Court has said as well. So that's what I've got for today. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, the moon is hollow.
The moon is hollow.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what.
Well, that is a controversial one.
No.
So all those pot marks are just like pit holes.
No, I will. Yeah, I will throw out a plug that I know that the trial where we had a murder shooting, a death. Let's put it that way. It was that was arrested for murder. That trial is actually going on today, and I believe they're in deliberations. Erlene's actually at the trial.
Are they? Yeah. Is she? I mean, I didn't know. I realized they were already in deliberation. So
well, I don't know if they're out yet. They were in deliberations when.
So it went to jury today.
Yeah, that's what I was told by our on the
spot reporter.
Erlene Bohannon, our editor, is covering the story. That's the story in the news. So hopefully we get something out today on that. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted. And it's looking like the case has been very back and forth. It is a fact that it is a law in Kentucky that you can defend yourself and shoot somebody dead in the chest. Yeah. We are not a run state. We are.
You can stand your ground.
Stand your ground.
And it's been that way since the beginning, as far as I can remember. As far as I can ever remember being told that it's been, you can defend yourself and your goods within your home and on your property here in Kentucky.
Yeah, and it is was very graphic about how that was described to the jury today. So it's been a very interesting day. We will soon find out.
I look forward to that story. I hate to hear any time there's a death. But I think it's important for us to be able to have our Second Amendment rights to protect ourselves. if I'm in fear of my life, and I have my my concealed carry, I do have a weapon.
I will protect my family and my children.
But it's one of the last things I want to have to have to do.
Well, and it's very unfortunate. This case also involves the victim, obviously a meth addiction and some other things. So there was drugs involved, and it was. That's the problem we need to solve.
All I can do is shake my head. I hate this, and
we'll see.
I pray for those families. I know that there's other people involved other than just the people who are directly involved. There's a lot of indirect people, families, children.
Well,
and that's
tell us what your thoughts are on this subject. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what Kentucky's grown. Maybe we need an extra representative seat. So we only get 2 senators, folks, but House is made up of based on the population.
Kentucky only has 6, but at one time we had 7, 8 representatives. It's important to be counted. To be counted.
So show up and be counted.
Make sure you get counted.
And stay tuned. We'll keep you posted with more updates as we watch it unfold.
Yep. Steve, have a good one.
Glad you're healthy again.
Me too. And I'm glad we're here.
See you guys.
See you next time.
It's come back in, but we literally just shut down the podcast, Mark, and
the news came out. The verdict came in.
The verdict came in. He is not guilty on all charges. The law in the state of Kentucky of stand your ground held in this case. And it's very interesting because in this case, he actually called as soon as he did it, laid the gun down on the table, and waited for them to arrest him. He has been in jail for 18 months awaiting this trial.
I remember when this happened. It is a person that we know.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get into all of that, but it is we know the families that are involved in things, and again, it's one of those things. I hope I'm never in that situation to where I have to make that decision to take a life. But I'm also grateful that I live in a state where if it comes to that, then I know that the law can prevail.
Yeah. So breaking news, you heard it right here at the Messenger first that not guilty on all charges. We'll be covering the story and more in next week's newspaper, so wait to find the story. And also, next week's release of the newspaper will also have our the fair review, and so you'll want that. It'll be our special C-section, and it'll be out to give all the highlights from the Meade County Fair. You guys have a great week. Enjoy your weekend.
Steve, and once again, have a good night.
Mm-hmm.